So what's maybe the single most critical hire when you're really trying to scale up sales, like moving beyond founder-led selling?
Oh, that first head of sales.
Mm-hmm.
Hands down. It's probably the most impactful decision you'll make right at that point.
Right.
Because they aren't just, filling a slot. They're basically designing your whole sales engine.
Building it from scratch, often.
Yeah. Building the team, defining the strategy.
Yeah.
It really determines whether you're going to grow or just, stall.
Get it right, you accelerate. Get it wrong.
Oh, it costs you big time. In time, money, lost opportunities. It's a huge setback.
The stakes are definitely high. And figuring out how to make that specific hire, the very first one, it can feel a bit daunting, can it?
Totally. Where do you even begin? How do you find someone who can actually build this thing?
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today. We're looking at insights from a source, the sales experts, who've laid out this 7-step roadmap just for this process.
Yeah, it's a really practical guide. And our goal here is basically to boil that down for you. Give you the actionable stuff.
Right. Whether you're a founder, maybe already a sales leader, or an exec facing this decision.
We want to give you the key steps, the things to really think about so you feel more confident tackling what is, let's face it, a huge milestone for your sales success.
Okay, let's get into that roadmap then. The sales experts are pretty emphatic about this first bit. Before you even think about a job description or LinkedIn.
Yes, stop before you do anything else.
You have to lay the foundation. Step 1. Define the role and responsibilities. And step 2, determine the budget. Now, this sounds maybe a bit obvious.
It can sound that way, yeah.
Yeah.
Almost bureaucratic.
But they argue rushing, this is just a fundamental error. Why is getting super clear on the role first so vital for this specific hire?
Well, it's a great question because, look, it's not just about listing tasks, right? For a first head of sales, defining the role means spelling out success. Like, what does success actually look like in real terms for your company right now?
At this specific stage.
Exactly. Are they building from zero? Are they trying to crack a new market? Are they bringing order to chaos? Because the answer totally changes the kind of person you need. If you don't have that clear picture, the KPIs, the outcomes you expect, then how can you possibly judge candidates? Or even know if they can succeed in your setup?
So it's less manage sales team and more like build a team of 5, hit X million ARR in 18 months, focus on Y segment, that level of detail.
Precisely. It's defining the impact.
Yeah.
And only when you've got that clear can you really figure out the budget.
Okay. So the budget flows from the role definition.
Directly.
Yeah.
Because the budget reflects the experience level you can actually afford.
Yeah.
Can you go for that seasoned full-time leader who's done this exact thing before? Or are you looking at maybe less experienced, part-time, fractional options? Your budget dictates that reality.
Which brings us to some pretty blunt advice in the source material. 2 lines really stood out. First, why pay for someone to learn on the job? Hire someone with a proven track record.
Straightforward.
And the second one, maybe even more direct. Be prepared to pay the market rate for experienced talent. Pay peanuts and you'll get monkeys.
Yeah. Look, they're provocative, sure, but they hit on a hard truth.
Right.
For this specific foundational role, you just don't have time for a long learning curve. You can't afford someone figuring it out for 2 years. You need someone who's navigated these waters before.
Yeah.
Successfully.
Because the cost of not getting that person
is huge. Months of stalled growth, maybe bad hires under them, failed sales initiatives, that cost dwarfs the salary difference for real experience.
So that upfront investment in market rate, even if it feels steep, is actually mitigating a much bigger potential cost down the line.
Exactly. You save a bit on salary now, maybe, but you lose months, maybe years of revenue. You risk team morale. That pay peanuts line, it just underscores that top sales leaders, the builders, they command good compensation because they deliver massive value.
Okay.
This step forces you to face that and budget for the talent you actually need to hit those goals you set in step 1.
Makes total sense. So you've done the hard work up front. Define success, align the budget for experience. Now you move to step 3, identifying qualifications, and step 4, casting the net. How does that early clarity shape the qualifications list?
It makes it way more focused. Instead of just a generic list, you're prioritizing things directly tied to your success metrics, your specific challenges.
Gotcha.
The sales experts mention the basics, of course. Sales management experience, obviously. But crucially, a proven track record of meeting sales targets. And they stress This means company or team targets.
Ah, not just their own individual quota from when they were a rep.
Exactly. Big difference for a leader. Plus, great communication skills, vital for leading, talking to marketing, products, representing the company, and strategic thinking. That's non-negotiable.
Right, because they're probably building the strategy, not just running plays.
They are building the strategy, market segments, competition, process, hiring. They need that strategic brain.
Okay, so you've got this sharp profile. How do you find these people? The source mentions the usual channels, job boards, social media, networks, referrals.
Yeah, and those are all definitely part of it. Referrals, especially from your network, can be gold. But the sales experts add something really key here, specifically because this hire is so critical.
What's that?
They strongly recommend considering a specialist headhunter, especially for finding top passive talent.
Passive talent. Why is that group so important here? Aren't the best people actively looking sometimes?
Often, the absolute best, the ones really excelling right now, they aren't scanning job boards every day.
Okay.
They're doing well, they're valued where they are, they might be open to the perfect opportunity, but you need to proactively go find them. Headhunters specialize in that, identifying and engaging people who aren't necessarily putting their hand up.
So even though a headhunter costs money, the idea is they unlock a pool of candidates you just wouldn't reach otherwise?
That's exactly the argument. For a hire this impactful, getting access to that top 1-5% of talent, the ones already succeeding in similar roles, it massively boosts your odds.
Okay.
It's an investment in someone who can likely hit the ground running, rather than just hoping the right person stumbles across your ad. It de-risks the whole thing.
Right. De-risking is key here. So define role, set budget, identify qualifications, cast the net wide, maybe use a recruiter. Now, the evaluation phase. Step 5. Screening and interviewing. Step 6. Checking references. This feels like where the rubber really meets the road.
Absolutely. And the process needs to be really rigorous. It starts with screening resumes against those clear qualifications you set. Then quick phone screens are crucial.
Just to weed out the obvious mismatches early.
Yeah, check communication, basic fit, confirm key experience points before you sink hours into interviews.
And then the deeper dives, behavioral questions, situational stuff, maybe even asking them to present a plan.
Exactly. The interviews, virtual or in person, that's where you probe. Dig into their experience, their strategic thinking, how they solve problems, cultural fit. You want concrete examples. What do they actually do? How do they think about it?
But interviews, they're still a performance to some extent, aren't they? People prep.
They absolutely do. And that's precisely why step 6, reference checks, is so incredibly vital and why the sales experts really hammer this point home.
Okay.
Interviews show you the presentation. References show you the reality. And their advice is just spot on. Pick up the phone and speak directly to references. A lot of information is between the lines.
Between the lines, what does that mean practically? What are you listening for besides just, yeah, they worked here?
It's the nuance, the tone. Sometimes it's what they don't say.
Right.
Are they really enthusiastic but kind of vague on specifics? Do they pause a little too long when you ask about handling conflict? Does their description of the job match what the candidate told you? You might hear like a subtle hesitation about rehire eligibility. Or maybe they rave about tasks that aren't really the core leadership stuff you need.
So it's about asking good, targeted questions, like behavioral questions, but to the reference, and listening really closely to the how as well as the what.
Exactly. Tell me about a time they faced a big team challenge. What was their single biggest contribution? How did they handle pressure? You listen for specifics, not just, oh, they were great. A real phone call lets you follow up, dig deeper based on their answers. You get insights you'd never get from an email.
Yeah.
For a hire this important, you need that full picture to really minimize the risk of getting it wrong.
Yeah. That detailed approach to references definitely feels like the right level of rigor for such a high-stakes role. It's not just ticking a box.
No way. It's the final validation. You've seen the potential in the interview. Now you're verifying the actual performance and style.
Okay, so let's quickly recap the big actionable takeaways from the sales experts here. First, get crystal clear on the role, define success, and budget realistically for proven experience. Don't skimp.
Absolutely. Second, use that clarity to define specific qualifications, focusing on leadership impact and cast a wide net. And really think about using a specialist recruiter for this role to find that passive talent.
Right. And third, a rigorous evaluation is key. Thorough screening, deep interviews, and crucially in-depth conversational reference checks. Pick up the phone, listen between the lines.
Following those steps gives you a solid framework. It's about being strategic, clear on your needs, aggressive in your search, and really rigorous in how you evaluate. You're not just filling a chair, you're finding your future sales architect.
Well said. And look, if you need help diving deeper or accessing that talent pool, the source here, the sales experts, they actually do this stuff.
That's their business.
You can check out their resources. They offer recruitment services specifically for these kinds of roles. They even mention on their site you can schedule a call or just email them. It's connect@thesalesexperts.com to talk about what you need.
Yeah, getting expert help for such a critical hire, it can be a really smart move.
Yeah.
Ensure you're using best practices, accessing the best talent.
Definitely worth considering. Okay, that leads us to a final thought, something for you to chew on. It builds on this idea of the hire's impact. We've talked about the steps to find this great head of sales, but are you actually ready for them?
Good question. Is the house ready for the architect?
Exactly. Is your data clean? Is your tech stack reasonable? Are internal processes clear enough? Is the rest of the company actually prepped to support a growing sales team? It's worth asking before you hire, are you building a solid foundation for them, or are you asking them to build on shaky ground? Something to think about to make sure they can truly hit the ground running when they arrive.